On this week's episode, we're going to introduce you to Cleveland, Ohio native Big Ed Delahanty, who was the second person in Major League Baseball history to ever hit 4 home runs in a single game, which happened on July 13, 1896, just over 2 years after his predecessor, Bobby Lowe, first made history. Delahanty was a superb player, playing primarily left field, and had a lifetime batting average of .346. He was posthumously inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1945. And while our show today will touch upon his great career, we're focusing more on his untimely death in 1903, a death that involved him being kicked off of a train for being unruly in or near Bridgeburg and Fort Erie in Ontario, Canada, just before crossing the International Railway Bridge to the U.S. en route to New York City. There is still much speculation as to what exactly transpired, but what we do know for sure is that Delahanty fell off that bridge and his body was found at the bottom of Niagara Falls a week later. And today, we're in Buffalo, New York, on the American side of that very bridge that he fell off of in 1903. So join us today as we take a look at Big Ed's career and very unusual death, right here on History and Relics. Edward was born in Cleveland, Ohio on October 30th, 1867, to James A. and Bridget Croak Delahanty, who were Irish immigrants and had arrived in the United States just 2 years earlier. Edward was the eldest of 8 children, 5 boys and 2 girls. 4 of his brothers, Thomas, Joseph, Jim, and Frank, also all played Major League Baseball for various professional teams. And one of those brothers, Jim, we have a vintage store model baseball bat that dates to the early 1900s to 19-teens. It's an endorsed model featuring Jim's engraved facsimile signature and was made by Stahl and Dean. Jim's career spanned from 1901 to 1915, and he played for 8 teams during that time frame, including the New York Giants, Cincinnati Reds, St. Louis Browns, and the Detroit Tigers. Edward attended Cleveland Central High School and went to college at St. Joseph's. While playing neighborhood baseball around the Cleveland area, his hitting ability caught the eye of local scouts, which landed him a contract with the Cleveland Shamrocks, a semi-pro club that played at a neighborhood ball field behind Engine House No. 5 in Cleveland. Meanwhile, in Mansfield, Ohio, for the better part of 2 decades, the area fielded some excellent ball teams, but did not organize professionally until 1887, when the franchise coordinated with 7 other cities to form the Ohio League, headed up by Thomas Nathaniel Sandy McDermott. These other cities included Akron, Canton, Columbus, Zanesville, Steubenville, Sandusky, and Kalamazoo. Word was already out about Delahanty, and soon McDermott made his move to add him to the newly established Ohio League. McDermott offered the 19-year-old Delahanty a $50 per month contract. That's about $1,350 today, to play with Mansfield of the Ohio League, where Ed went on to hit .355 with 90 runs in 83 games for the 1887 season. Even though the season didn't take off well for the Mansfield team, Delahanty's talent shined, and the community knew they would not be able to hold him much longer. At the end of the 1887 season, the entire town decided to band together, pool their money, and buy Edward a gold watch to see him on to bigger and better teams. The town had the gold Elgin watch inscribed, "Presented to Edward J. Delahanty by the Mansfield Rooters, 1887. Delahanty kept that little piece of Mansfield, Ohio with him everywhere he went, and cherished that watch for the rest of his life. This watch is still around today and has been seen at various major auction houses. So if you or someone you know owns this watch, well, we'd like to speak to you, so give us a shout out. Edward moved on from Mansfield to Wheeling, West Virginia in 1888, where he hit an astonishing .480 in 21 games, which caught the attention of Al Reach, president of the Philadelphia Quakers, or the Phillies, of the National League, who offered him a fresh contract worth $1,800. That's over $45,000 today. Then in 1890, Delahanty and several other Phillies were shifting over to a new league called the Players League, also known as the Brotherhood. While most of his teammates switched over to the Philadelphia Athletics of the Players League, Ed went back to Cleveland to play for the Cleveland Infants, who were in that same new league and owned by Al Johnson. The new Players League quickly fell apart and disbanded, though. The Cleveland Infants ended with more losses than wins in 1890, which prompted Delahanty to return to the Phillies in 1891. For the next several years, Delahanty was at the top of his game and was a monumental player. He had so many good years, it's difficult to set one year over another. In 1893, with a .368 batting average, 19 home runs, and 146 RBIs, he narrowly missed being awarded the Triple Crown, as teammates Billy Hamilton and Sam Thompson led the league in batting with averages of .380 and .370, respectively. Ed Delahanty, Ty Cobb, and Roger Hornsby are the only three hitters in history to ever bat .400 or more for 3 seasons. Edward accomplished this feat in 1894 with .407, 1895 with .404, and again in 1899 with .410. Delahanty's on-base percentage in 1895 was an outstanding .500. Edward's signature moment of hitting 4 home runs in a single game came on Monday, July 13, 1896, when the Phillies played the Chicago Colts at West Side Park. He is the second major leaguer in history to have accomplished this mark, with Bobby Lowe being the first to do so just 2 years earlier on May 30th, 1894. It was a blistering day with temperatures reaching triple digits in the grandstands, and where 133 deaths were recorded that day due to the heat. Still, about 1,000 resilient fans turned out to watch the game. Edward's first homer came at the start of the game. With 2 outs, Delahanty stepped in, batting fourth in the rotation, and took a swing, which hit the ball over the inner lower bleacher fence in the front of the right field wall. Delahanty's third at-bat came with 2 runners on base. He swung and launched one over the scoreboard and canvas-topped right field wall. The ball landed across the street into a flock of chickens, where a little boy chased the ball into the pen and scarfed up the souvenir before being chased away by a pursuing police officer. This second home run of Delahanty's was said to have been the longest ever hit at West Side Park. In the 7th inning, the Phillies were down with a score of 9-6, but guess who was coming up to bat? Yep, Delahanty again. He whacked his third home run over the head of outfielder Billy Lang. The ball rolled to the distant clubhouse, giving Edward plenty of time to lap the bases towards home. In the 9th inning, not only was the temperature outside heating things up, but tensions in Chicago's dugout were flaring too. Before Delahanty was due up, Chicago's manager, Cap Anson, threatened to fine his entire team the cost of 3 meals at World's Fair prices if any more Philadelphia players were put on base before Delahanty came to plate. The team took a timeout and rearranged themselves to the furthest part of the grounds, awaiting Delahanty's arrival. Now even Chicago fans were getting behind Edward and were standing in their seats cheering him on. But Delahanty fooled everyone when he bunted the first pitch foul. With the next pitch came the crack of the bat that rifled number 4 some 450 feet, striking the roofs of the center field clubhouses. The fans erupted and cheered wildly for over 10 minutes. This spectacular game also allowed Delahanty to tie another of Bobby Lowe's recorded accomplishments by having 17 total bases in a single game and within the same game as their 4 home runs. Even with such a great baseball game and Delahanty's great efforts, the Phillies took a loss to Chicago with a score of 9-8. Thus, Delahanty was the first baseball player to have 4 home runs and 17 bases in a single game, but on the losing team. In 1899, Ed achieved career highs in hits with 238, doubles with 55, and a batting average of 410. He even managed to record 4 doubles in one game, making him still the only player in history to have hit 4 home runs in a single game and 4 doubles in a single game. The 31-year-old Delahanty also won his first batting title that year as well, and the Phillies managed to win 94 games, which was good enough to secure 3rd place for the season. Phillies owner John Rogers was notorious for not paying his players very well. In fact, despite how great Delahanty was, and had been now for over the past decade, he wasn't making much more in 1900 than he was when he first started his career. This all came to a boil, though, before an exhibition game in Montreal in the spring of 1900, when both Delahanty and Lajoie walked out before the game. Edward refused to sign a contract for $2,400, although there was an added $600 bonus to act as team captain. $3,000 in 1900 is the equivalent to about $92,000 today. However, tensions finally died down for both men, and by opening day, both were in the opening day lineup on April 19th. Before the 1902 season started, Delahanty decided to sign with the Washington Senators for $4,000 a year. By December of that year, things became a bit more complicated as Delahanty swapped out teams and leagues once again to sign with the Giants in a multi-year deal worth $8,000 a year, and even took an advance on the first year's salary of more than $4,000. However, Edward was still under contract obligations with the Senators. Delahanty was not the only player jumping from team to team for more money, although he was the most prominent of the bunch. The argument between leagues and other players, including Delahanty, lasted until the beginning of the 1903 season, when a formal agreement and peace accord between the leagues was entered into. For Delahanty, he agreed to stay with the Washington Senators and repay the Giants' advance, but had to resort to a payment plan to take the money out of his salary for the next 2 years, as he had spent all of the advanced monies. About this same time, skeletons were beginning to emerge from Delahanty's closet. He had been leading an increasingly tormented existence off the field. His wife, Noreen, had become seriously ill in the fall of 1902, which led Ed spiraling out of control, resorting to heavy binge drinking and devastating gambling debts involving horse racing. More often than not, one would find Big Ed looking for the answers to his problems from the bottom of a whiskey bottle, while avoiding creditors, loan sharks, and reality. On the field, though, there was a totally different man. On opening day, April 22, 1903, Delahanty helped the Senators to a win over the New York Highlanders with a score of 3-1. On May 29th, he hit what would be his last career home run, a solo inside the park homer against Boston. By mid-June, his batting average was .325. In a game against Cleveland on June 25, 1903, Edward went 1 for 4 with a stolen base, but Cleveland shut down Washington with a score of 4-0. Things for Delahanty turned for the worst again as he missed the next game in Cleveland, either due to feeling ill or lapsing back into a drunken stupor. Nonetheless, he continued on the road trip, which took the Senators to Detroit. However, Delahanty missed the entire series in Detroit as he was in no shape to play. His mother and 2 younger brothers even traveled from Cleveland to Detroit on June 29th in order to help Ed, but their efforts were to no avail. The next day, teammate Bobby Lowe even tried reasoning with Delahanty after threatening to kill himself, but he allegedly chased Lowe out of his motel room with a knife. Big Ed must have heard the news about fellow player George Davis, having a similar contract dispute as he did, but Davis was allowed to play with the New York Giants versus staying with his rightful Chicago White Sox. It seemed that this opened old wounds between leagues again, as well as possibly was the driving force that prompted Delahanty to want to travel back to New York to join the Giants or attempt to rejuvenate his previously forfeited contract. Between July 1st and 2nd, Ed wires a message to his wife Noreen to have her meet him in Washington. Meanwhile, it's believed that he took out an accident policy, naming his young daughter Florence as his beneficiary. On the evening of July 2nd, the Senators began packing up to leave Detroit for home back in Washington, but Delahanty is nowhere in sight. Edward was already aboard the Michigan Central No. 6 sleeper train heading for New York. One of the first places Ed headed for was the bar, where he downed a few whiskeys. It didn't take long before his behavior began to get unruly. He became loud and shouting at fellow travelers and went into an already occupied berth and attempted to drag a sleeping woman out of her bed by her ankles. He even threatened the conductor with a razor after an attempt to calm him down failed. The conductor had had enough and stopped the train near Fort Erie in Bridgeburg, Ontario, and booted Delahanty off the train. After Edward and the conductor exchanged a few more words, Delahanty began walking across the International Railway Bridge towards Buffalo, New York, which is on the other side of the bridge and Niagara River. The bridge was not designed for pedestrian traffic, and soon he was approached by a night watchman. The watchman raised his lantern to get a better look at the would-be trespasser and ordered him back to shore. But Delahanty, likely still drunk and disoriented, started to run towards the American side of the bridge. Unbeknownst to Edward, the draw was opened ahead to let a boat pass through. Delahanty ran and fell off the bridge into the river below. Neither the conductor nor the night watchman knew at the time who the unruly passenger was until hours and days later. Edward Delahanty's body was found 7 days later on July 9, 1903, in the turbulent waters at the base of Niagara Falls by William LeBlond, who was operating the popular Maid of the Mist tour boat. Edward's body was badly mangled with one of his legs torn off, presumably by the propeller of the Maid of the Mist. LeBlond notified the police and arranged for the body to be taken to the Morris Funeral Home in Niagara Falls, Ontario, where his identity was later confirmed. Much speculation resulted from the incident. Was it an accident? Could it have been murder? Was it suicide? No one alive today really knows, but the preponderance of evidence would suggest that it was an accident. Edward was taken back to his hometown of Cleveland, Ohio, and was buried in Calvary Cemetery on July 11, 1903. Edward was only 35 years old. Floral tributes came from all around, which completely covered his gravesite. His wife Noreen later remarried a Louis Leroux. She passed away on May 22, 1945, at the age of 66. Edward's daughter, Florence, lived to be age 89 when she died on November 17, 1987. Noreen and Florence are buried at Magnolia Cemetery in Mobile, Alabama. Edward James Delahanty was posthumously inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in 1945. And as for the bridge, well, it's still here today and is in full operation. The two-span swing bridge was built in 1873. The bridge consists of two sections, the first extending from the Canadian shore to Unity Island, formerly known as Squaw Island, and the second extending from Unity Island to the American mainland shore. The bridge is now part of the Canadian National Railway Stamford subdivision. It is also used by the Canadian Pacific Railway. Daily traffic generally consists of about 15 trains per day and are often seen at or near a stop on the bridge undergoing various security checks to cross the international border. However, the bridge no longer carries passenger trains. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed our program. If you like our content, we ask that you give us a thumbs up, a like, share with your friends, subscribe to our channel, and ring that notification bell so you always know when our new content is published. And all of this costs nothing, but means a lot to us and keeps us growing. You may also leave us a tip if you choose. The address is provided here on your screen, and a link is provided in the description area below. So until next time, everyone, this one is history. Hey, and be sure to check out our eBay store under ID, History, and Relics. We're now featuring channel merchandise, starting with our new logo magnet. They're only $5.50, and net proceeds go towards supporting our channel.